Okay. Hello and welcome to Single Parent Success Stories. I have a pleasure of introducing today an amazing woman. Her name is Mia Saenz, and she's from Los Angeles. She's a single mom of two grown sons. She's also a love activist and the creator of Women Making Miracles. She stands for love and supports you do the same. Mia helps those who feel alone and yet dream of love to make love real in their lives so that they can go out and seed love into the world. Mia helps you develop yourself, develop your miracle, and finally develop your world. As a clairvoyant, Mia also helps you tune into love's promise for your life and your work. Through her work as a love teacher and coach, Mia has discovered the depths of love on all levels. Working through love opens the connection so that all of life's purposes flow, which includes love, money, and abundance. Mia is also a media host and is the founder and editor-in-chief of BellaMia magazine, a transformational and holistic living well magazine. It is absolute pleasure and delight to have Mia on the podcast. So welcome, Mia. It's an honor to have you.
Thank you so much. It's an honor to be here.
Thank you. So in the beginning, I ask all my guests to share their story, where they are coming from, the struggles they've overcome, and if you became a single parent by choice or by accident. So please share your story with us.
Wonderful. So my story, like everybody's, usually begins when we're younger, right? When we're from our childhood stuff. And so due to the great stuff, I also had the same of bad stuff. And so I carry with me CPTSD, which is complex postpartum stress disorder. And I have created an amazing life in the last 12 years by being able to work through all of this stuff. And do I get activated still? Occasionally, like when the coronavirus first came out, I could feel people's energies and I was a little activated. But what happened with my story, and I am not single anymore, I am married. And so what happened was I married very young. I loved my first husband very, very much. We weren't able to have children. We lost a lot of children.
Sorry.
Thank you. Then after 10 years, our first son was born. And boy, were we so excited. And then we had another son, and then miscarriages again. My husband was a beautiful daddy to little tiny children, and then he didn't understand them, and he got engulfed in his work, and he was never around. And after, I'm perfectly fine with all of this. It's I know that for some women and you who are listening, it's a chance for you to see that you can get to the other side. There is hope at the end of the tunnel, and everything can be as you want to create it. And so that's the hope that I bring today to the listeners. And so in this time, 9/11 hit, and I had my PTSD get activated, and I was incapacitated pretty much for many, many, many years. But I'm still my kid's mommy, and we still didn't have the help that I needed. And life was very rough. And it got to a point that when I shifted into this experience that I'm living today, I realized that my husband, who was an absent husband, was no longer needed in the picture. And so I left, or, we split up.
Right.
And he still supported with the children, seeing them when he could, but it was different. It was interesting. Life really began in that moment because I claimed it. Just like women who leave abusive relationships because they claim their freedom, they claim something different. And so I've created this work that I teach for the last 12 years. It's beautiful. It helps heal the inner wounds, the scars. It's based, I call it psychology of love, because it's based in psychology and it's based in deep love and spiritual wellness and mysticism and all the beautiful things that bring us peace and actually heal our interior self. And like I said, and I got remarried. So, so everything is, you know, by choice and by direction and by just really creating our lives.
Yeah, yeah, so true.
Mm-hmm.
So at which point in your life did you decide, you know, that you needed to start over, you needed to, you know, start recovering?
Yeah.
As you left?
Yeah. Well, I knew for a long time I needed to start over and recover. I just couldn't do it until literally when the doctors said to me that I had less than 2 years to live, that my organs were. So what happened was after 9/11, the frontal lobe of my brain short-circuited or burnt out. The doctors described it as a computer motherboard, that I would never be able to think properly again. I most certainly couldn't talk like this or calculate or even have an interactive conversation with people. I wasn't dumb, but it seemed like I had lost a lot of will to live, I guess you'd say. That's what my boys have said, you know, as we've built this amazing relationship among us. They had said, wow, we didn't know that you even really cared back then, which of course broke my heart when they told me, but they also knew where I came from, what we had done, and how we created this beautiful life we live now. And it was amazing. Like I said, I got called into the doctor's office, and this was after being under medical care every week and for over 7 years, and every day for the last 3 years before this time came when the doctor said, because I had physical therapy from an accident in 2005 where boxes fell on my head at a big department store, and I was taken away by ambulance, and I had paralysis in my legs and my arms, and I was in a wheelchair, and I walked with a cane, and I had to have, you know, in the house, and I had to have support getting cleaned and taken care of, and I kind of was propped up like a vegetable. Probably not that bad, but that's what it felt like. I was not living a life worth living. Then when I got the information from the doctors, you know, what do you do with that? It's like either telling you you're going to die and you don't know what to do. And so I went home, and I had to tell my kids and my family, and that family still included my ex-husband at the time because he was the kid's father. Mm-hmm. And in that time, this was actually right before I left him. And then the next month was my birthday. And I didn't have much to look forward to in those days. I literally slept 20 hours a day because of the head injury and things like that. And the medicine was on 11 medications and a breathing machine at night, a CPAP. And so life was not very nice at all. And on my birthday, I saw this light coming in through the window like every day, but it was special because even though my mom had her illnesses about her as she raised us, and there was a lot of abuse, there was also love. And I knew that she celebrated our birthdays. Like that was our one special day of the year, literally. That and Christmas. Except for our birthday, we didn't have to do anything. You know, everybody waited on us. So that was the day, literally, that this made sense looking back on it. Why was it your birthday? It was the day that I allowed myself to have my healing. It was the day that I allowed myself to play in curiosity with that light that was coming in. And I thought, well, God is here, and I'm just going to go with this feeling, whatever happens today. And so I get up like I did every day, and I sat on the couch to connect with my children and to see them because I couldn't do a lot of moving around. Right. And I heard a voice that said, "You've been unhappy your whole life. What would it be like to be happy?" Now that was first of all, hearing a voice like that was dumbfounding to me. I mean, I was just like, what is that, you know? And then those words specifically, what is that? And why was it a male's voice? But I did connect for myself that God was my mother, father, and that for me, because I had a good relationship with my father, I guess that's why it came in as a male's voice, you know, and my father had passed when I was just before I was 14. So of course I connected to the male energy that way. And so I thought, wow, well, this is a crazy thing. And I heard myself, I could see myself like across the room, my saboteur sitting on a stool saying to me, we're not playing this game. You're not going to die. They're not taking you out on a gurney. You're going to be fine. Stop this stuff. And I really was just like, in that moment, I was like, this is my birthday. I'm going to do this. This is my gift to me. So in that moment, I stepped through all the mental anguish, the depression, the fogginess that we hear people talking about. And it's like I was almost climbing back to myself, and I gave myself the biggest gift ever. And in that giving came when I said, I don't know what to do with what the information, have you been unhappy your whole life? And then I heard, yes, you do. Recreate, build out, expand the 5 pillars of life. And so I could see instantly what that was in my mind's eye. It was spirituality, family, home, body, and work. And so the spirituality side, I've always been connected that way. And that's probably what saved my life, this time. And when I got to the relationship, I realized that the man that was my children's father, who had been non-present for 8 years, was not the man I wanted to be with, that I would die literally if I was with him, because he felt dead to me. And so I knew I had to shift, to change, to do something different. Right. And as I examined more what it would be like to have a relationship with someone else, in came a new energy of a man. And it's actually like the man that I'm married to now. Mm-hmm. And as I saw the physical side of my body, I wasn't in the wheelchair. I was playful and dancing how I had always been. And I was clear thinking. All this stuff came forward, like rushing forward of my own movie kind of creation. Right. And so I dreamt it. Then I believed it so much that I had to go out and create it. And so I remember telling my youngest son, who was always by my side, I just had this thing happen. And I tried to explain it to him. And I said, I've realized that I'm going for life. I'm going to heal myself, and I'm going to find the way. And even if I do happen to die before we thought, or before I'd like to, I'm leaving you the legacy that you can create anything you want in your life. My only legacy, makes me cry, my only legacy to you is, at that point, that's what I thought, my only legacy is to show you that you don't have to live the life you think you have to live. You can do what you want to do. Mm-hmm. And so that was really powerful. And so I literally, this is my first process that I teach, Dream, Believe, Create. But there's so much more to the work that comes along with it. That's part of, once we get the healing all done, then we create our lives. I did it sort of backwards, but it all worked out beautifully. And so it took me 4 months to build my inner core, to work out to work out all the plans of how I was going to create this new life, to get healthy and whole and fit, and step by step by step. And when the time came, from the time that I set, we set a time to the universe, we're going to do something, and we have to do it. We find a way. And so when my D-Day came, my due day here, I started my new life with such gusto that it shocked everybody. Nobody could even comprehend that that was me. I was up, never saying no to anything to the kids, driving them places, working out twice a day, literally one day in the morning at the gym, and then a walk at night. And my body got in such amazing shape that people would say, this doesn't happen to anybody who has been, immobile for so many years. Yeah. And it's remarkable. And in that moment, I knew that I had been touched by God, or by a beautiful experience. And so I was going to dedicate my life to humankind. And so that's what I've done. I became a coach, and I became a professional writer at, a few months into my that year of transformation. And I've never looked back. And we can keep recreating our life at any given time. And that's the beauty.
Yeah, yes. Couldn't agree more with you. You have an amazing story, and the things you overcome are remarkable. And I believe it's all in our head, and we are our own guardian, our own judge, and our own spectator.
Mm-hmm.
So anything that happens, it happens for a reason, and you're able to be here today, and you're an amazing spirits. You have overcome all your struggles.
Thank you. Thank you. I do love life. That's for sure.
If you can share the struggles that you overcame, what were the things that were holding you back, do you believe? Um,
Well, for me, it's unusual. It's different than most people because for me, there was a physical limitation of movement due to the head injury, due to my spine having my lower L4, L3, and maybe L2, I can't remember, being ruptured and having paralysis in my arm. So I would pick up a glass, and before I knew it, it would fall right out of my hand.
oh.
Didn't even know when or why it would happen. It just bonk right out and crash on the ground. So that's an obstacle, right? I've never thought about the obstacles until you said that, but that's an obstacle. The obstacle from 9/11, from the shock of our country being in disarray the way it was, and living by LAX airport, Los Angeles International Airport, and them saying that we're next to be bombed, it short-circuited my frontal lobe. So not being able to communicate like I do now, not being able to calculate, not being able to function, I couldn't hold conversations where my kids really thought I didn't care anymore, because I learned how to be a good fake, meaning I was like, but I didn't know what the hell anybody was saying, literally. And I was always exhausted. So the brain injury too, and the exhaustion. We hear that about depression. You know, I work with a lot of people who have depression and fogginess. Until they don't, they get past that with the work that I teach. And so that fogginess, that inability to formulate, part of it was my accident and part of it was the depression part. How can you formulate words or move forward when your brain isn't functioning, when you can't pull out ideas? So I literally had a lot, and I had the due date of death on me, 2 years. So I had a lot to overcome. Being in the wheelchair, learning how to rebuild my inner core, working out after that, losing 140 pounds in 7 months to get in shape. I mean, all these things were so divinely flew through me that it's as if people have asked me, are in the early days, not anymore, but they have asked, are you a walk-in? Has somebody stepped into your body? Is there another soul in there? And I'm like, no, it's me. I remember everything, you know, but it's so shocking to people from where I was before to where I am now. I'm sure that most anybody who knew me back then still knows me now and is like, wow, this is really cool. But the mental capacity was hardest for me. The physical, I was so exhausted all the time. Hell, I didn't mind being in a wheelchair. In that respect, I was exhausted. What I did mind was not being able to connect intellectually with people, not being able to communicate in the depths in which I had. That brings me to tears today, that kind of pain. That was my deepest pain. Not being able to follow a conversation, to know what the beautiful nuances of them were. That was my pain. That was my pain. So for all those years, those 8, 9 years that I lived like that was the pain, was not being able to function at the capacity or level that I normally had operated before. And I was well aware that I was not normal anymore. So that was my deepest pain to overcome. So there's a lot of shame in that. I didn't look in the mirror for almost 10 years. I pulled my hair back in a ponytail. I tried to be the most, loving mom, loving person I could be, but when you're dealing with pain, or when you overexert yourself and you pass out for 48 hours straight just from being exhausted, from overdoing it, we're not talking about alcohol or drugs or anything. We're talking about just sheer exhaustion. Those are things that are very traumatic. When we moved to Mexico because my husband, this was right after 9/11, and I was I did go to a hospital and get help for the first 5 weeks after 9/11. And then we moved to Mexico. He was on a job, which we never saw him there either. I was all alone. And I took my kids back to Los Angeles for one of my son's birthday parties so they could be with their friends. And then we turned around and came back home and to Mexico, which wasn't that far. It was just, Rosarito. So it was like 4.5 hours from LA.
Okay.
So I ended up sleeping from Saturday night until Tuesday morning with nobody waking me up. Apparently my son said that they checked on me several times, that I was breathing and all. And I was like, well, why didn't your dad call the ambulance? So, that's how disconnected and how he wasn't even in our life presently. And fortunately, I had maids that came in every single day. I had a male and a female that took care of the house. And so at least they were watching the kids. Thank God. Thank God. That was a huge blessing. But that's a sad thing, to be incapacitated where you're passed out. Now I'm going to cry, but where you're passed out, because I've healed so much in my life, the trauma, the shock, but then I think, what about my babies? My babies didn't have their mama at that time, and they had a lot of fear that they've had to live with and then overcome. So that's part of the legacy that I was talking about, is raising powerful children, bringing a life that was in total collapse back around to having so much structure and power. I don't mean control, being a freak about it. I'm talking about power as in, you go from being immobile to you go to building an empire. You go to changing hundreds of women's lives and thousands in group that I teach. This is the things that this is how the ability that we have. This is what life is about. Doesn't matter that you are by yourself right now, ladies. This is the time. In fact, sometimes it's better. Your healing can be stronger and richer when you focus in on yourself and not worrying about a partner, not worrying about what a husband has said or if he's hurting you again or whatever your story is. It's the power to connect to you and then to your children. Many of you have heard about putting the oxygen mask on first and then putting it on your kids, just like they do in the airplane. So it's that same thing. We cannot be power driven to support and love if we don't take care of ourselves first. That's the thing about the depths of self-love that I had to learn myself, to take care of myself so I was strong. And then there's so much overflow that of course it goes everywhere. My children, my now husband, everything. It's just incredibly powerful to come from the place of thriving as opposed to victimhood. Now, we used to be in survival for years and years and years in our, when my kids were little, until I became a thriver. And boy, let me tell you, I was so proud those first couple of years. Woohoo! So it's an amazing transformation. And if my story brings some light for others or some hope or some possibilities, then I've done my job, literally. I remember becoming a coach, wanting that. And my mentor said, this was right after, this whole wake up period for me. Yeah. And my mentor saying, well, you need to have an event in 6 weeks and you need to do this and this and this and this and get it done. And so I actually held an event. I created my business. It was called Connecting to Your Passion Core. And it was about that dream, believe, create process, discovering who you were, finding the passion to move forward in life, to recreate everything that you needed. My discovery of passion was going back to when I was a child and remembering how my siblings and I used to go hiking in the hills and we would make forts out of trees and play games and things like that. We did everything. We'd roll down hills and through swampy waters, and we were adventurers, man. We were on the 1849, California gold rush even. We just did all kinds of crazy things thinking that, we could really discover gold and all this stuff. So that's the passion that you take into your life moving forward. It's very similar to the childlike expression, not the injured child, not the inner child that's injured, but the healed inner child that elates you and can bring everything forward.
Yes. Yes, I couldn't agree more with you. It is the self-love that can alleviate everything. And once we are healed ourselves, then we can be a better parent, we can be a better human to your kids, to society in general. Because I often, when I became a single parent 5 years ago, I was just in a blur, living in a blur, and bringing my best self to work while my kids, I think they got leftovers. And if it felt, I felt really bad about that. And so I emerged on my journey to self recovery and started doing things that make me happy to
It's beautiful.
fulfill myself by myself. But I realized not, you don't really need anybody, you don't need a partner. You first have to come to terms with yourself, where you're from, what you like and dislike, before you can move forward and live your life.
Yeah, it's about rebuilding a belief structure, right?
Yeah.
When we're born into this world, and we experience our first form of abandonment when we leave our mother's womb. And in that, our parents don't speak our language and we don't speak theirs. So there's more miscommunication on top of the trauma of leaving that cozy place called the womb, right? Where we're grown and birthed from. And although our parents, they really did not set out to injure us, they set out to love us, but most of them were very young and incredibly inexperienced. And so we have to bless them for what they've done, for the effort, even if it's a little bit of effort or it was wrong effort. It was their journey, their experience, and it was ours too. And it's created us to the magnificence that we are today. Out from the ashes comes the beautiful phoenix to rise again. And this is where, as women, we can keep recreating ourselves like that phoenix, right? We're not supposed to crash and burn, and the phoenix doesn't crash and burn. The phoenix eventually dies and then comes back to life. So if you can imagine that you're that phoenix rising, that you have this ability to create a life, but then instead of crashing and burning again, you keep it going. You keep those fires, those embers inside of you of passion and desire and creation moving, so that you can absolutely do everything you want. That means being the most fantastic supportive mom you can be. That means leaving your children a legacy, healing your stuff that keeps you back. It's crazy but beautiful when people, women, connect to that. I had a client that came to me this year that said, I heard you talk about legacy and how if that was the only thing that you could give your children, that's what you wanted. And she said, I want that. And so when I started working with her, it was interesting because she was way above me, coming into work with me than I was back then, right? When I was in that moment. And so it's a beautiful thing to see and to support women who weren't dying necessarily to want to create legacy, but who want something different. She's a high-powered corporate woman, and she's, has a great marriage and all that, but she wanted to leave, wanted to remove the abandonment issues, wanted to remove the pain and abuse from her childhood and leave her children a legacy of love. Wow. Isn't that crazy? I mean, I know I talk about this stuff, but when I hear people repeat it back to me, I go, wow, because it's like, wow, I celebrate you kind of thing.
Thank you. Makes very great points. What kind of advice can you give to single parents who are struggling today?
Yes.
And are overwhelmed?
Yeah, the first one, everybody, on overwhelm is begin a gratitude journal. Start it with your kids. So your gratitude journal would look like, and if you don't want to write it down, you don't have to, but there is a cognitive function from the writing the brain and out on paper that almost expresses it to the universe, but you could vocally say it too. You could be like, this morning, I'm grateful for being able to get out of bed. It's hard until you create a great life. I'm grateful to wake up. I'm grateful to get out of bed. I'm grateful for my children. I'm grateful I was able to make my bed. I'm grateful I could sit and eat. Now, if those are the simplest 5 things that you can think about, great. Do it again at nighttime. but you have to do different ones. You can't do the same ones. And then you do it the next day. I'm grateful to be able to brush my teeth, to drive to work, whatever it is that you are finding. And then the point about this is discovering the gratitude, not just saying the words, not just going through the practice blindly, but literally discovering what it means to be able to start to move out of a fog and be able to get up and make your bed. You're going to see that making your bed is going to be different. You're going to see that waking up in the morning is different. And then when we teach our children gratitude, here's a way in which you can teach your children gratitude. Have them write down something that they're grateful for every single day for a year on a little either colored piece of paper or regular piece of paper, or you write it down as they tell you, and put that little strip of paper in a, like in a canning jar, in a mason jar, and have them decorate it, our gratitude jar. And then in a year or on a holiday or a birthday, you could do it several times a year, open it up and read them. Read the amazing things that you're grateful for.
Amazing advice.
Because you're going to forget. I have a page on Facebook, Everyday Gratitude. That was one of the big things that I would offer in there. And so literally it's about changing and shifting everything about your experience. And that's the deepest connection, is the gratitude. That's entering you into the vibration of the God frequency, into love. Another thing is, identify where you are, like do the dream, believe, create process. My website, if I may say, is womenmakingmiracles.com. On the home page is the treasure trove. In there is videos on this work. There's an ebook that you can have that is from me. That's for you. All of these are downloads. They come immediately. Read them. The dream, believe, create process is in there. Self-love tools are in there, the mirror work, the inner child meditation process, everything to be healed, forgiveness letter writing, all of that's in there. Begin your journey into you and celebrate you. No one has probably ever told you that you are a miracle, that you're deeply loved, and that you're not alone. Literally, you're not alone. We're feeling that in this time of the coronavirus, that people feel that they are alone. And I'm like, honey, you're not alone. You are so loved. And then, of course, they feel loved. But the fact of the matter is that there is so much, you were born pure love into this world. And we get things, our belief system, from our parents, our teachers, the media, newspapers, everywhere, shifts our beliefs of what they think, excuse me, instead of what we think. Mm-hmm. And so we're regaining our own belief system again. We're removing all the things that your best friend's parents said to you on your sleepover that hurt you and stayed with you, or the bully in school, or the teacher. Right. It's restructuring who you are. And that's the powerful thing. You have the ability to create an abundant life. And when I talk about abundance, it's not just about the word abundance. Abundance is everything. It's the stars in the sky, the natural wildlife on our planet, the trees that we see, forests, oceans, everything. Sands in the, sand at the beach. In 1 square inch, there's so much sand there that you could not take a cube of sand and count out each piece. That's abundance. And because we're on a money planet, people get confused about money, and it's all supposed to be smooth. So if this even sounds like of any interest, begin your own journey inward. That's where it begins, is inside of you. That's where the power is. You are more powerful than you've ever been told. Literally. And this is from a woman who had severe abuse as a child, who was so depleted growing up that I couldn't laugh out loud, to wanting children. And I mean, my story sounds horrible, to wanting children and not being able to have them until 10 years in. There's a reason for that too. My mom was a speed addict. And when I was in utero with her, my uterus got messed up, which is what happens with junkies or speed people when they're carrying female uterus, female babies in the uterus, in utero. And so it's amazing because I did get 2 children. I was blessed that way. And we can have the worst things come up. It's not about that. it's about the beauty of life. So even start your beauty journal, which is like a gratitude. I love or you can include that in your gratitude. I love the trees. I love the stars. I love being happy. I love my friends. I love my children. Break down what you love about your children. Don't be critical. These are amazing little beings. You know, I hear things from clients about the way their parents treated them. And in a sense, it breaks my heart, not that I can show that, but it breaks my heart because I see such loved beings across from me on the computer screen, wherever they live all around the world. And so they're so beautiful, and yet their little wounded inner child is there saying, I just wanted to be loved. So let's not repeat that with our children, right? That's where we have the power to step forth and to say, no more. No more crap, no more chaos, no more unloving feelings,
Yeah.
no more disconnect.
Thank
No
you.
more.
Thank you.
No more. Oh, and you're welcome. Thank you.
At which point in your life did you write your book?
Well, I've been writing for years. I just, before I came out of this stage of this lifetime now, over the last 12 years, I never published those books. I never even tried, but I wrote. And I used to write children's books too. And I would write a book for my kids. You know, they'd get tired of reading all the books that we would buy. I mean, they had a huge library of books. And so I got creative and I would write them stories. And I also am working on books for children now where there's children's stories that contain self-love messages for both boys and girls that are separate. But I became a published author the first time in May 22nd, 2009 was when I went through the Library of Congress. And then after that, I've written several books. My most recent book, and some of them aren't up anymore, you know, because different publishers, if they don't do super duper duper well, they pull them and they don't do stuff. So now I have a Love Revolution, which is up online. Mirror, Mirror, a step-by-step guide to a life that loves you back. That's also on Amazon. But you can also get it for free, the Mirror, Mirror book, in the treasure trove that I mentioned off of my business website. So I own a magazine that started in 2014 to support women. BellaMia magazine. It's a self-love magazine, which means beautiful me, beautiful mind, BellaMia. And so anyone looking at it, it's the message of you are beautiful, literally. So it has nothing to do with me. It has to do with your own beauty and your own magnificence. And I also started doing radio shows, you know, as a host back in 2010. So I love the work that I do. I mean, I've created this life and I'm just really, really happy. Now, has it always been this way? It has, except for times like when my mother died and I had to heal through that. I had my sorrow. I didn't dislike life. I just wasn't as alive as I am again right now, because we all have to take moments of growth, moments of healing. So when I ask you to do your journaling of your gratitude, that's your beginning. Some people not. Some people are already on this journey, but that's your beginning into your life. And so know that there are ups and downs. And also in that book, Mirror, Mirror, teaches you how to get out of those moments where you fall down and you can't get up, kind of feeling like, oh my God, I've been so happy and now I'm just really depressed and I don't know how to get out of this depression. So there are tips and tools in life out there. I'm not the only teacher out there. I'm the best teacher. No, I'm kidding. That's a joke. I'm not the only teacher out there, but you know, I have my own pack of people that love my work, and some people love somebody else's work, and that's how the world works, right? So if you're thinking, oh my God, I like what she does, maybe I'd like to do that one day. Yes, please do that. You will have your own community of people. They will come. Build it and they will come.
Yes, thank you, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for your knowledge, for your wisdom, for your story, for your benefits and suggestions. It was a pleasure of having you, and I really appreciate everything that you shared. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Irina. This was really beautiful. It was.